Notes from research. The first thing you have to do in this step, and this is a multi-day step, it should not be rushed. It should take you several days to find enough quality information to make your argument. The first thing you should do is to make copies of the research graphic organizer, which you will find on the slide for this step. You may fill it in digitally as you research, or you may print it out and take notes using pen or pencil. Step 2 is to identify keywords and questions from your topic to help with your research on the debate and positions that you are getting into. You will then use those keywords to search for information. You may find text or video sources. Read those sources and then take notes from 2 to 3 solid quality sources using the following guidelines. These are very important. The first are do's. Definitely copy down the link for later use, whether to research it later or to use it as a source in your project. You should generally research the who, what, when, where, and why of your topic or debate. You should get more than you think you will need. You should take notes in your own words. And you should look for the following kinds of evidence: stories about individual people, names, dates, and places, statistics, numbers, and ratios, and quotes from speakers. You'll want specific evidence that can support a claim, not repeating a claim. So these kinds of evidence will help you support that claim. Do not plagiarize, meaning copying a source word for word in any way, shape, or form. The only thing you may copy directly from a source is specific information that cannot be presented any other way, such as a date or somebody's name or a number. But the way that information is presented should be in your own words. Do not copy down entire paragraphs. That is unnecessary. And do not write down information that repeats a claim or position. For example, if I were to say that COVID-19 is the worst disease outbreak that has ever happened, if I found an article that said COVID-19 is the worst disease outbreak that has ever happened, that is not useful for me to write down. That repeats my claim instead of supporting it. Supporting it would be evidence such as COVID-19 has infected 20 million people, which is more than any other disease ever. That's not an accurate fact. That's just an example of what would be good information. So I'll take you through this process here. Step 1 is going to be identifying keywords and questions for research. So in my sample, I'm going to do the topic for debate: COVID-19 is the worst pandemic ever. I am then going to generate keywords and questions that would help me identify whether that is true or not. So these are some samples. The keywords are in bold. What have been the worst diseases? How widespread? How long did it last? What are the symptoms? How contagious is it? How many people died? I created these keywords and questions by thinking about how do we know if something is the worst or not. Sometimes you may find these from the research itself. Sometimes you may be able to think of them on your own. So I will then take you to a website where we will be able to start gathering some of this information. So I'm going to start out with my first question keyword with worst diseases. I'm just going to Google worst pandemics, and I'm going to try out this first link. Now I would save this link on my graphic organizer, and then I'm going to start exploring the page. Now I've looked at this previously, so I'm going to go to a specific section that we'll be able to work through easily. All right, so we'll take a look at the flu pandemic of 1918. So I'd say in my research, okay, that is one of the worst diseases. Death toll, 20 to 50 million. So going back, that is a statistic, that is a number that I can put into my research graphic organizer for how many people died. Then I'll read it. Between 1918 and 1920, a disturbingly deadly outbreak of influenza tore across the globe, infecting over a third of the world's population and ending the lives of 20 to 50 million people. Okay, that's giving me a lot of information. Between 1918 and 1920, that's giving me a time period of about 2 years. How long did it last? It's also giving me how widespread was it? A third of the world's population. Of the 500 million people infected in the 1918 pandemic, the mortality rate was estimated at 10 to 20%, with up to 25 million deaths in the first 25 weeks alone. That's a lot of good statistical information. So how widespread? A third of the world's population, 500 million people. How contagious? We get that kind of information. Mortality rate, 10 to 20% of people who caught it ended up dying. What separated the pandemic from other outbreaks was the victims, where influenza had always previously only killed juveniles and the elderly or already weakened patients. It had begun striking down hardy and completely healthy young adults, while leaving children and those with weaker immune systems still alive. So that is a good fact. As far as worst, like how bad it can get, what kinds of people die, a lot of good information there. So there are many diseases listed here that I could pull from to then compare with the COVID outbreak, getting the most recent information on that, which I would probably have to get from another website. And then I would be able to compare to identify which one was actually the worst. Okay, that is a beginning into research. Again, it is a multi-day process involving multiple websites and a lot of different research questions. You will probably have additional research questions you come up with as you begin exploring the websites. So you should absolutely go down those roads and not ignore them.